Taking blood to attract mythical creatures, one could become invincible, stop time, even aid in the regeneration of insects, swiftly kill humans, leaving no trace behind. This is the blood magic practitioner from Thailand. Welcome to our channel. Today, I will introduce to you a Thai science fiction film, an action genre movie called Master of Magic. Will is an underground boxer from Thailand, often accompanying his father and two friends to various underground boxing arenas. But in today's match, his father noticed something unusual. The opponent's combat ability was not just an amazing good chop, though ordinarily not as strong as Will. Now he felt unusually aggressive. In reality, the opponent had cheated by using magic to fight against Will, unaware that Will's father was a super magician. Thus, Will's father did not hesitate to give the fraudulent magician a taste of his own medicine. Meanwhile, Will also launched a lethal blow at his opponent. After the match, Will shared this joyful news with his girlfriend, unaware that his father was troubled. A businessman had noticed Will's father's protective amulet stone, La Clay. He offered an amount equivalent to the cost of a G63, insisting on buying the protective stone. However, Will's father had no intention of purchasing any G63, so he firmly refused. Enraged by the refusal, the businessman made threatening remarks to Will's father. A small scuffle ensued, but fortunately, Will arrived in time to defuse the situation. However, Will discerned the danger from the opponent's eyes. On the way home, Will asked why the thugs insisted on buying Clay's license. Father answered Will's question that throughout life there will be countless difficulties, but there are things that cannot use strength and intelligence but must rely on magic. Very quickly Will understood the meaning of father's words. They were stopped by a group of people. Will's father discovered that the person who caused the car crash was the businessman just now. In order to get their favorite things, they staged a murder and robbery. Will is injured and his father hides him in the sewer. As for himself, he acted as bait to lure the enemy, thanks to the power of the protective stone and his father who survived their hail of bullets. Even successfully dunked on some skilled shooters, but did not expect that the other side had prepared in advance. A man wearing a red shirt jumped on top of the car. He was also a magician. This guy not only killed Will's father and took the talisman stone, but also drained all of his magic power. Will saw his father's death with his own eyes. Finally, because the wound was too severe and he was short of breath, he fainted. But the image of a bald man wearing a red shirt covered in tattoos, he will never forget for the rest of his life. By the time Will woke up, many days had passed. His father was helped by his mother's friend to perform the burial, but the murderer had not yet been found. The strange thing is that a few days ago Will's father bought accident insurance for him, as if he knew in advance that something would happen to him. This friend's words reminded Will of the conversation he had with his father a few days ago. It turns out the father told Will a few days ago. A magician friend of his said that in the near future he would face a fierce bloodshed, and told his father to take advantage of the ritual to dispel the disaster. Will's father didn't know how to drive, so he asked Will to take some time to drive him to a temple. But because Will was busy preparing for the upcoming tournament, he put that aside for now. Unexpectedly, the bloody disaster really worked, and at this moment he deeply regretted it. So he went to the temple, and with the help of the master, he began to learn about magic. By converging all the thoughts of the shamans on his body through tattoos, his magic power becomes strong and invincible, and he also has a magical beast to protect him. In the blink of an eye, 8 victories had passed, and a psychological consulting company was organizing a second meeting on the laws of universal energy. Clearly, this was a sham, but there were quite a few believers. Mrs. Trung, known as Mrs. May, was a prominent figure in the lower realm of power, including the businessman who sought to acquire Will's father's protective amulet. The representative of the organization happened to be Will's former girlfriend, who was a model. At that moment, Will was sitting amidst the crowd, having spent several days eavesdropping, finally learning about this businessman. He was determined to use magic to avenge his father. That evening, Will broke into the man's house, using force to compel him to reveal the truth. It turned out that behind the facade of the psychological consulting company was a deeply hidden network engaged in the trade of magical artifacts. They employed every means to acquire stones like La Clay, Meng Oak, Gi Bet, Maha Ni Eom, and various other magical objects to sell to wealthy spiritualists, as the wealthy tended to believe in such items. As the businessman was about to disclose the name of the true culprit behind Will's father's death, he suddenly took out a gun and fired repeatedly at Will. To his surprise, the bullets couldn't penetrate Will's body. However, just as he was about to reveal the killer's name, he was slain by someone using magic. Unbeknownst to Will, the bald murderer was standing outside the window, seemingly orchestrating everything. Subsequently, the police began investigating the death of the businessman. One stout police officer believed the killer had used magic, but the team leader found this hypothesis utterly absurd. Certainly, here is the translation. On the other hand, relying on the clues obtained, Will sneaked into the magical equipment warehouse of the psychological consulting organization. He intended to turn this place to ashes, but he was unexpectedly discovered by a man named Lao Nyi, who happened to be a magician as well. A magical battle ensued in the storage room, with Lao Nyi summoning a monstrous tree creature to combat Will. Just as Will clenched his fists and muttered something under his breath, his protective mystical creature, gifted by the Great Master, sprang into action. In the end, Will's guardian creature proved to be more powerful, and Lao Nyi was left severely burned, writhing in agony on the ground. To Lao Nyi's astonishment, while lying in his hospital bed, he was nothing more than a helpless and ordinary individual. He had been fatally injured in the hospital by his own magic. In Lao Nyi's place, a psychic young man emerged, and the organization's warehouse was set ablaze. 2 workers were murdered in succession. Lao Nyi, acting on behalf of the organization, exerted pressure on the police, demanding that they swiftly find the murderer. While covertly dispatching someone to seek vengeance against Will, one of Will's friends died in the ensuing brawl. A few days later, the company organized an auction. While they were showcasing the collected treasures to potential buyers, Will took action. He employed his time-stopping technique. Except for Mrs. Mai, everyone's time was frozen. Unbeknownst to Will, Mrs. Mai knew nothing about the death of Will's father. Could someone have hidden from her the truth about her father's murder? At this moment, no one realized that one person was missing, the second in command of the organization. He was currently sitting in a car nearby, casting spells. After releasing the time-stopping spell, Will realized he had been deceived. This was a trap set by both the police and the organization to capture him. To avoid a direct confrontation with the police, Will chose to flee. Unexpectedly, he was stopped halfway by the police captain. Unable to stand idly by or harm the police, he resorted to mesmerizing the captain. But what he didn't expect was that after the captain of the magic team died at the hospital, the identity of the murderer was blamed on Will. Faced with magic masters, the entire police team was helpless. So the captain's female police officer went to another great magician. At the same time, he is also the captain's older brother. Previously, the master was also a police officer. Later, I don't know why he was imprisoned in a very strictly guarded prison. When he learned that his younger brother had been killed by magic, the magician clenched his fists, only to see him blow lightly, easily controlling the female police officer. Immediately, the magician's scripture engraved on the door was erased, and on this side Will was sitting on the subway, facing many assassins trying to kill him. But it is not easy for ordinary people to want to kill a powerful magician, regardless of his sword or gun, and also his powerful magic. In an instant, all the assassins were killed. At this moment, the great magician officially appeared. At first the two only fought to test each other. Will used fire. The great magician easily extinguished it. He used flying insects to attack Will, but Will used fire to burn him to the ground. Seeing that the opponent didn't care, Will directly used a strong move to summon the guardian beast. Unexpectedly, when the divine beast saw the great master, it immediately disappeared. It seemed that at a critical moment, it still had to rely on itself. After that, the two sides began to fight with their bare hands, but the master's strength was much stronger than Will's. But when he read the memories in Will's head, he discovered that the person who killed his younger brother was not Will but someone else. Because there was no enmity between the two sides, the two said goodbye. The master found Mrs. May. Turns out the two were old acquaintances. They had had contact many years ago, facing Mrs. May who was clueless and knew nothing. The master lectured her for a while Will searched for his girlfriend to get her to leave the organization. But what he didn't expect was that his girlfriend had become the girlfriend of the old scoundrel. I was intercepted by the old scoundrel. In the battle, the old scoundrel's wig fell off, and it was then that Will realized that the culprit who murdered his father was this bald-headed old man. That bald head along with the lifelong eyeglass tattoo, Will could never forget, but what surprised him was how incredibly strong he was. Whether in close combat or in terms of magic, he was no match for him. Standing unwavering in front of the old scoundrel was just a joke. Not long after, Will's arm was brutally broken, but thanks to his skills, his arm was able to regain its original condition. However, not long after, he had his arm and leg broken, and finally he used his blood to summon his protective spirit, not expecting that the other party also had a golden bull as a protector. Although the spirit successfully managed to control the golden bull, it was the old scoundrel who struck it, making it run away. But just as he was about to escape, he encountered the master, under whose protection, although his wounds had healed, his vitality had been severely damaged. When he returned home with injuries, he met the female police officer from before demanding to arrest him. Will's friend told the story, and the female police officer finally understood Will's situation. She learned that the psychological manipulation organization had secretly killed many people to steal treasures. According to the female police investigation, there are many murder cases related to this organization. However, the director did not think so. In the absence of definitive evidence, he only asked the police to quickly arrest Will and bring him to justice. It wasn't until the police later saw a photo of the police chief and Mrs. May that she realized there was a game in it. A few days later, the organization conducted an annual activity. Everyone in the company gathered in one place, including Will's ex-girlfriend. The master and Will met without appointment and were there together. Unexpectedly, the annual activity turned into a deadly battlefield. Lao Nhi was prepared in advance. He summoned a ferocious bloodthirsty beast. The first person he killed was Mrs. Mai. It turns out that this organization was jointly founded by Mrs. Mai and Lao Ni's father. It's just that Mrs. Mai later tried to force Lao Ni's father to leave the company. Finally, due to bankruptcy, Lao Ni's father had a mental breakdown. Not only did he shoot his wife dead, but he also bit his tongue and committed suicide. Old Nhi has been hiding in the company for many years, killing people and robbing everywhere in the name of Mrs. May, to wait for the right opportunity to destroy the organization and destroy Mrs. May. Finally, Lao Nhi used Father Will's Le Clay charm to turn her into stone. Later, while fighting with the Great Master, the Great Master also knew that Lao Nhi was the real murderer of his younger brother. So why did he have to kill Will's father and the Master's younger brother? This is closely related to the magic that Lao Nhi learned. He learned to absorb Dafa essence. Even though he is still young, his power is so profound because he killed many other magicians, then drained all their power, killed Will's father and kept Will alive. Because he wanted to create another magician, killing the Grand Master's younger brother was just to attract the Great Master. In order to absorb all his magic power, the two of them now joined forces. Even if they had all their internal strength, they would not be Lao Ni's opponents. At the crucial moment, a female police officer appeared to interrupt his energy-sucking technique, but the female police officer was beaten unconscious by Lao Nhi, and Will's ex-girlfriend was also killed by him in front of him. While Will was having his magical power sucked by Lao Nhi, the police barged in. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Lao Nhi chose to temporarily withdraw. As a result, the master escaped, and Will was imprisoned in a strict prison. Lao Nhi became the company's respected tycoon. Of course, the story doesn't stop there. Because she had experienced this, the female police officer finally understood the meaning of Father Will's words. There are some things that cannot be done using only strength and intelligence but must rely on magic. So when she went to the dungeon again, she gave Will the Le Clay talisman that the master gave her when she was about to leave. She wanted to help Will become stronger, but she made Will promise her that after everything was over, he would definitely return to prison. When she leaves, the Le Clay charm melts. Will absorbs all the energy from it. Although it was painful, he knew this was the only way to defeat Lao Nhi. The final Great War still broke out at the magic weapons warehouse. Will also changed his perception of Lao Nhi again. This is definitely a sick and inhumane guy. Unexpectedly, he collected all the skulls of the victims he killed together, using them to worship himself, including the head of Will's ex-girlfriend. The resentment is getting bigger and bigger. Only by fist fighting and hearing the sound of the weapon being stabbed into the opponent's heart can he completely release the hatred deep in his mind. Right at the moment Lao Nhi was planning to use his energy draining technique to drain Will's strength, Will used the Le Clay stone inside his body to pierce Lao Ni's body. Finally, he destroyed his invincible body, then used the Treeman magical treasure next to him and stuffed it into Lao Ni's stomach. Will read the Bible in his mouth to activate the magic weapon, witnessing with his own eyes the tree trunk exploding strongly on his body. The outcome was clear. Will returned to prison as he had promised to sincerely accept his crime. Okay, this is the end of the movie. See you all in the next movie.